Thank you very much for the invitation by the EIF, by SME Europe, and also for Mr. Stefanec to host this event. Now, I'm very happy that we got the initiative on the gender balance here, because we have a policy that we look for proper or good gender balance in panels that we speak. So this has helped a lot for me to also justify to be here, and I think it's a good idea that this was done. Now, let me bring a different perspective into this debate. I mean, the question is, what can Europe do to help SMEs? And for myself, I'm a research and innovation manager in the Commission since many years, and I've been one of the architects of the Digitizing European Industry initiative together with Commissioner Oettinger, where we took steps in that direction, and what also led us to come to certain proposals we did for the next multi-annual financial framework. And I would like to come to the practical point how we can help SMEs. We made good progress in the digital transformation of SMEs over the years, but we nevertheless still see that only 20% of the SMEs in the EU are highly digitized. And we see a lot of fragmentation. You have mentioned that before. We see 53% of the companies in Denmark are highly digitized, but only 8% in Romania. We see 56% of the computing companies being highly digitized, but only 6% of the metal products companies. And in terms of SMEs, we have 20% of SMEs, as I said, but 58% of large companies are highly digitized. So we see a lot of fragmentation, and the slow diffusion of digital technologies poses a risk to the EU's ability to compete on the global economy, and you are all aware of that from the press. So if I summarize a bit what SMEs need, you have made many points here, and I just would say SMEs need access to competences because they can often not afford a digital expert. So they have to be helped on that, on digital technologies, but also on their application and what it means to have to digitally transform. They cannot sit it out and wait until it comes to them, because by that time they're bankrupt. So that's extremely important. They need experimentation spaces. I mean, an SME doesn't want to invest millions, they want to play with technologies and see what it means for them, see what it means for their competitiveness. So it's extremely important that they can try. We call that test before invest. And I think they need these spaces. They need the finances for the digital transformation. Some of you have mentioned the venture capital or equity market. I think there's quite a lot of money available for startups at the moment in the areas like Berlin or so that are pushing for that. So there's quite a lot of money available, but when it comes to the growth phase, it's not as good. So we have to look into these issues. And last but not least, what is very important is also loans for SMEs who don't want a co-investor, but who wants to just master its digital transformation, wants to get funding for non-tangible assets where banks have problems, like skills development or transformation of their systems internally, because if that company goes bankrupt, there's nothing left of that. So the bank cannot go back as if you buy a robot. Yeah? So intangible assets is quite important. It's also important to be in the ecosystem. So ecosystem building is a very important point. SMEs need to meet with other SMEs, but also with the big ones who pull them along in all dimensions. The industrial ones, the OEMs, they work for as suppliers, but also the banking sector. And that's extremely important. And the skills development, you have already mentioned those facets. Now, what we are heavily promoting by the Commission is the concept of digital innovation hubs that help across the whole economy of Europe. They are one-stop shops that support SMEs in digital transformation, and usually they have a center like an RTO or Research and Technology Organization, University Lab, who is very advanced in their thinking and who helps them on testing before investing. They have experimentation facilities where they can play on artificial intelligence, on high-performance computing, on cybersecurity, on blockchain technologies, just to name some of them, robots and so on. They know how to develop skills, and they have training programs for them. They know where to find investments and how to deal with that, how to prepare for that. And they are also well connected in innovation ecosystems. The Commission has pushed this a lot with the member states in this financial framework. For example, in initiatives like that we have, like Smart Anything Everywhere or ICT Innovation for Manufacturing SMEs, we have around 150 hubs, and we have so far in the last 2 years supported 500 startups in many experiments, and by 2020 we'll get up to 2,000 SMEs to support it. You may feel this is a drop in the ocean. In a way, it is true, because we also address very high-end innovation. So we address really the more early adopters, the 20–30% of the SMEs on the tip of the iceberg. But it's a start to help these SMEs and to bring European added value where single member states or regions cannot do it because they don't have the competences. So we need this competence transfer across border, and that's where European added value, and I take up the word of subsidiarity, where European added value comes in. Europe doesn't have to pay for a regional center to support an SME that is in its neighborhood. This the member states and regions can do. That's not for us. But if they need a technology that they don't know about, they have to go elsewhere and look for that. And this is also where a bit the deficiencies come that we see at the moment. We see that Europe is not well covered everywhere. We see a lot of deficiencies in the EU 13 countries. We have set up several actions together with the European Parliament, and I would like to thank the Parliament for supporting us in that, to teach and to build up new digital innovation hubs in Eastern Europe. For example, at the moment we have a program running where we teach 60 hubs across all the EU 13 to learn how to do that and to build their own hubs in their regions. And we will put around 20 million euros now in the next 2 years on the table for supporting the build-up of these kind of institutions, organizations in Eastern Europe. For example, we have our next big event on digital innovation hubs where we meet yearly. We have that in Warsaw. We want to give the message also. Now we want to go stronger to the areas where we are weak at the moment. Now, what is missing in this picture? Now, at the end, we have so far supported this on a European level and also very often in the member states for high-end SMEs, the ones that are the first ones. In the technology adoption, I would call them early adopters. So we are not going enough at the broad majority who has to look at that, who is not that innovative that they qualify for research innovation program support, because it's just not that innovative. It's a repetition of what has been done before, and it doesn't fall under the excellence paradigm of the research program. So we have to look at that. And we still see a market failure there because the SMEs are not doing it fast enough, and the member states and regions do not manage it alone. So we also see that when it comes to collaboration across borders that we need, an SME in Slovakia wants to work with a hub in Austria. In most cases of these where this is needed, neither the one government nor the other government would support that, because they give their funding for their individual regions. So we need this cross-border collaboration, and what we need is business models that we put in place and that Europe helps to put in place to make that happen. Yeah, and all of this now is what brings us to the next multi-annual financial framework, and we have a program on the table. The Commission has tabled a program which is called the Digital Europe program of proposed, which is under negotiation at the moment, with a proposal of 9.3 billion euros, where 10% would go to digital innovation hubs to support the very broad rollout to SMEs and to help SMEs who can come to the digital innovation hub and master their digital transformation, put experimentation facilities in place, and particularly focusing on SMEs, startups, scale-ups, and also looking at helping them on how to find finances if there need be. Now, obviously, This is a focus on rollout, so we look at the very large majority of SMEs, and it goes complementary to what is done in programs like Horizon 2020 at the moment or Horizon Europe in the future. So there's a clear distinguishing, a clear delineation between that. What is missing at the moment is support for the broad rollout, and the market is not doing that quick enough. So we have to stimulate that, and that's the idea of these digital innovation hubs. Also, obviously, there is complementarity what the Commission is planning on InvestEU and those programs that will help on the investment side. But the digital innovation hubs should be also the instrument to help SMEs to get further inside in that. So if I summarize what we are looking at in the new program that is on the table at the moment as a concrete measure to help SMEs in their digital transformation. The question was, how can the EU help SMEs in their digital transformation? So I would advocate we look at EU support for one digital innovation hub per region. We would like to co-invest in these digital innovation hubs. It's not we, from the European side, there's subsidiarity. We should not support each individual hub for the local work in the region. We should focus on the European added value. So when we support hubs in every region, for this European dimension, we need co-investment with the member states, with the regions, and the European Regional Development Funds is a good means to do that. And we work very closely with DG Regio on how we can bring that together. Not to forget also the other programs. Now, we focus on industry, in particular on SMEs, startups, scale-ups, and we also see that there's an increased need for this digital transformation of public services. Some countries like Estonia are very advanced, others are less advanced. And we would focus, as we don't have unlimited funding, we would focus on those technologies that are the most important ones, that are the biggest digital game changers, and we in particular look at HPC, AI, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and blockchain, and we also look into the particular dimension of skills development. So that's a summary of what we see as a means, what we propose as a means to help SMEs in their digital transformation and to speed up the process. And we think that is very important because the market at the moment doesn't do that quick enough for Europe. Thank you very much.